Hello everyone and welcome back to the Reddit Nights channel. My name is Anthony and today I'll be talking about a story that I found on r/relationship advice concerning an OP who has gone through a traumatic experience. I will say that there is a trigger warning for the story regarding sexual assault, emotional manipulation, cheating, alcoholism, and physical assault. If any of these trigger you in a particular way, I advise that you do not watch this or listen to the story, as I do not want you to go through any mental anguish or any potential issues from hearing this story. The story is actually called "I have spent the last 5 years believing my former friend tried to rape me." This was back in March 13th, 2022. So the title kind of says it all and is a bit to unpack, so sorry if this post is kind of long. The details all seem relevant though, and I'm kind of rambling since a bomb was dropped on me today that I just don't know how to handle and I need some advice. Trigger warning: sexual assault. 5 years ago, when I was 23, I had been working with a company that handled hospitality training and stuff like that. What we did really wasn't important, but at that point, I had been with the company for about 3 years already. Mark had gotten hired around the same time as I had, and we did a lot of training and stuff together. Got put in the same call center group, and all around just became extremely close friends that hung out after work since we lived close to each other and were both unattached. To point out how close we had gotten, since we were both single, folks in the company and our department always made jokes that we needed to just say screw the company policies and start dating. We always laughed it off because at the end of the day, we both made it abundantly clear to each other that we only saw each other as friends. For what it's worth, I don't remember how the conversation came up, but it had, and it was just a strictly platonic relationship. So yeah, we were basically attached at the hip for about 2.5 years when I met Paul, at the time 29 male and currently 34 male, and began dating him. Paul and Mark got along somewhat fine at first, but a few months into dating, Paul started to get upset if I said I was going to grab dinner with Mark after work, even if Paul was working at the same time since he had his own long hours. For what it was worth, Mark seemed to understand where Paul was coming from and only grabbed dinner with me when I asked him, never prompting it himself. Well, on my 24th birthday, I decided to throw a party at my apartment, and when Paul flaked on helping me get supplies, Mark stepped in and helped, even going out and buying the lion's share of the booze for the party. The party got going, and Paul ended up showing up an hour after most of the others were there. After a few hours, most of the people started heading out leaving, a few people sleeping in the living room because they were too drunk to drive, and then Mark, Paul, and myself. Mark insisted I go lay down since it was my birthday, and he knew I was already pretty drunk myself, so it wasn't right for me to clean up after my own party. So I said goodnight to everyone, and Paul helped me back to the room. Like I said, I was pretty drunk, and while I remember the night, I also remember being very off my normal composure. He put me in bed on my side facing the wall, and then left, and I pretty quickly dozed off. Trigger warning now. Skip this next paragraph if you don't want the gory details, but it's the only way I have been able to even sort of come to terms with all of it after my time in therapy. I will leave a timestamp for those who do not wish to hear this next paragraph. The next thing I remember is loud music blaring in the room and feeling completely bound. I was still inebriated, but as I tried to move around, I could feel I was tied to the bed, and I could feel someone on top of me. I was laying on my stomach, and there was a hand on the back of my head pushing it into the pillow, so I couldn't see anything and I could feel someone stumbling to try to pull my pajamas down and shoving his hand up against me. Someone was pounding at the door until I heard a loud crack and then Mark and Paul's voices arguing. The pressure pulled off my head and I could see the one of them pulling the other away, but in the darkness I couldn't tell who was doing what, but there was a lot of screaming and crashing. A few minutes later, Paul comes back to the room and unties me from the bed and just holds me, telling me Mark had been trying to assault me. I wanted to file a police report, but Paul convinced me not to since he had gotten there in time and nothing had happened, quote unquote, which I should have taken as a red flag, but I just didn't at the time because I was so relieved that I had been saved. I took a few days off from work, blocked Mark on all social media, but not before he texted me trying to tell me that Paul had been the one to attack me and that he was the one who saved me. I didn't believe him because it had been Paul that came in and untied me though, and if Paul had been trying, then why would he do that? Plus we were dating, and it just didn't make any sense to me, so I thought Mark had just snapped or something. I ended up quitting from the company before my time off ended because I had been starting to look at advancement in my career and moving on, so I just decided that was my sign and tried to run away from it all. Paul and I kept dating for about 6 months after that until I caught him cheating on me with a lady from his office. Maybe this should have been a bigger red flag to me too, but I've been trying to distance myself from what had happened. Then life just went on. I got comfortable in my new job, stayed away from getting too friendly with anyone from work, and never had a close guy friend again. Occasionally, I'd see Mark at the grocery store or around town. Like I said, we had lived close to each other and neither of us moved, and I never felt the need to since he kept his distance from me completely. And I thought I was mostly over what had happened half a decade ago until I get a notification a few hours ago that Paul had messaged me. I thought that was odd because I had blocked him. He made a new account, but I opened the message up anyway because of curiosity. I don't want to share the whole message because there's a lot of personal details in it, so I'm going to just hit the important details. So, according to him, Paul is an alcoholic and has been for years. Even back when we first started dating, he pretty much always drinking something or looking for an excuse. He got fired from his job for showing up to work drunk and assaulting the receptionist by trying to force his tongue down her throat in the front lobby at 9 a.m. He was in court, mandated AA, and as part of his recovery, he was trying to make amends with anyone he has wronged because of his habit. And finally, Mark never tried to rape me. It was him. He had been jealous of my relationship with Mark and saw an opportunity to get him out of the picture because of how gullible I was. His words. I'm not going to lie, I threw up after reading the whole thing. He had so much detail behind all of it that I just felt sick to my stomach that he not only remembered everything, from how he had secretly put ties on my bed before I even went to sleep, once he saw how drunk I was, getting to how he beat the shit out of Mark and threatened to kill him if he went to the cops. I know it's not a healthy reaction, but I've been drinking a bit since all of that message hit my inbox, trying to decide what to do. I know I need to call my therapist to talk about all of this, but my mind keeps going back to Mark and how betrayed he must have felt over it all. I even unblocked him on all my social media. He never blocked me, so his profiles popped back up pretty quickly. And I've been trying to decide if I should message him or not. I know logically that Paul should be the one messaging him as part of his AA stuff, but I'm also pretty sure that Mark did block him, since Paul mentioned not being able to find him on social media. But he also might not have remembered Mark's last name either, so it might have been hard to find him. So I guess my question is, should I message Mark? What would I even say? Sorry I didn't believe you when you said you didn't try to rape me? TLDR. Ex-BF was jealous of a close male friend and framed him for trying to rape me to get me to stop being friends with him. Short update / edit. A close friend of mine answered her phone and is swinging by to spend the night with me here just so I have a shoulder to cry on, because I could just use a good cry right now. I'm going to leave Mark alone for now while I get my thoughts in order, but I'll probably send him a message in a few days once I can talk to my therapist. I did put the wine away. It's not helpful right now, and I don't want to make the wrong decision and message Mark strictly on a somewhat drunk impulse. Wow. What a first post. This is absolutely heartbreaking on numerous levels. The fact that this was all planned by Paul just to hurt OP and Mark. Jealousy is a dangerous thing, and for it to go this far is absolutely despicable. That this is some of the most shameful actions I've ever heard or have ever read on this website. And to those who are potentially triggered by this, I do apologize, and I advise that if this is actually causing a serious reaction, to respectfully turn off this video. I will not take it personally if you do, and I would understand. I don't want to endanger anyone's mental health, and if anyone has gone through this experience, I deeply apologize if this is bringing it back up for you. I didn't expect the story to be this intense. I believe that Paul should be behind bars, and I think that it would be a good idea for OP to talk to Mark. At the very least, apologize for believing Paul, and to give Mark an opportunity at closure. Do I think they're going to be friends after this? Absolutely not. I don't blame Mark if he decides not to hear out OP. It's just a big gray mess, and it's very unfortunate that this happened. There are some comments that have been selected. One commenter said, "Yes, you should message him, because that has been an open wound for him that never healed. If he came in to try to stop Paul and ended up the bad guy when he was actually the good guy, is a punch to the gut, and never being believed about it is a constant pain that never really goes away. Good luck, OP. That Paul guy, glad he isn't part of your life anymore." Wow. OP responds, "This is exactly why my mind has been going to Mark, because I feel so incredibly guilty. I've been sort of, I guess, cyber stalking him a bit here, and it seems like he's had an okay life, but I just feel like I owe him some sort of message now." Another commenter says, "All I'll say is that you shouldn't be surprised if Mark wants nothing to do with you after you tarnish his name and kind of his soul in a way. I'll bet that because of this, there's more than a couple of people that think of him as Mark the rapist, not just Mark. I hope you learned you shouldn't believe the first story you're told when someone else's life is in the crosshairs of your poorly informed decisions. Y'all can get mad at that if you want, but this isn't the time to coddle anybody's feelings to avoid speaking an uncomfortable truth. There can be two sides of an argument without anybody needing to go call their therapist because they got triggered over an ounce of opposition. I'm sorry any of this happened to you at all. That should have never happened. But what happened to him is even worse, and at the end of the day, you are the villain of this story. Or of his story, I should say. OP responds by saying, while I completely understand that might be Mark's reaction, and is totally understandable if it is, I want to make it clear that I didn't ever go around calling him that or outright telling anyone, even though my first instinct was to file a police report. Paul has stopped me when I have brought it up, and in hindsight, it's probably because the investigation might have revealed that it was him, but I never told the company I was quitting because of Mark or anything like that, and only a handful of my close friends and my therapist even know of the assault. While that doesn't stop gossip, which may be what you're referring to, I didn't actively go out on the streets screaming Mark was a rapist. I'm also not saying I expect to even want to be close friends with him again, and maybe now this is just my own selfish guilt that is telling me I need to tell him. But as other commenters have mentioned, and I am taking the advice of, it's better for me to process this new information and talk to my therapist first. After hearing the comments, I agree that she needs to talk to Mark. Mark deserves some sort of justification, some sort of closure. Something that helps him move on from this and not feel like he is wrong for trying to be helpful. He shouldn't feel this type of guilt when he was trying to be a good person, when he was trying to follow his instinct and save somebody from a very bad situation. And it's very unfortunate. I haven't read the update yet, but I hope that there is some amount of forgiveness on Mark's behalf towards OP. Speaking of the update, this is the next day update from OP's user page. I went to bed last night after putting the wine away when my friend got here and woke up to so many comments and PMs that I can't quite get back to everyone without being repetitive. So I just want to answer a few common things I've been messaged or seen. In a comment, I mentioned I've told a handful of friends. To be specific, I told 3 plus my therapist. I didn't have a whole lot of close friends back then and wasn't a part of a big friend group either. That said, one of those 3 were here with me last night after I got a hold of her, and she's every bit as disgusted as pretty much everyone else. I can't say for sure if any of them told anyone, and honestly, given the passing of time, I wouldn't expect them to have the same crystal clear image of who they might have told. But I do understand this might have spread without me knowing. I am looking into statute of limitations and reporting my state here. From everything I have read over coffee this morning, I believe it hasn't passed, and as several have mentioned, he literally gave me a written confession. As of how I didn't realize Paul was an alcoholic, well, I don't have a good answer for that. I'm going mostly based on his message that told me he was always drinking even back then. We weren't living together, and as I mentioned, there were plenty of days that I didn't see him versus when I did, and I don't even know if he was even working late all the times he told me he was. I have texted my therapist, and I'm waiting for a reply now. I'm hopeful she has some time this afternoon or tomorrow that I can speak with her, but my friend is staying with me until I can speak with her just so I don't have to be alone right now, and I can't say just how much I appreciate it. To those of you who have provided advice or shared your stories with me, Thank you. Deeply from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Last night when I received that message, I was thrown for such a loop that I didn't know where to begin or how to unpack it all, given all the time that had passed. Old wounds can be reopened so easily, and this one was a scar that didn't need much to make it pop. OP also has a second update. OP drops a link towards the original post and says, "For those of you who didn't see my post when I first learned all the fucked up shit my ex-BF Paul did. TLDR, my psycho ex was jealous of my friendship with a guy from work, and he framed him for trying to rape me." Now, on to the update. First off, I want to thank everyone who messaged me to check up on me or to share their own stories with me. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I would like to start this off by first saying I haven't gone back to the wine, though I did super desperately want to yesterday. I haven't really been much of a drinker since that night 5 years ago and last week when I learned the disgusting truth about Paul. To those of you hoping I would file a police report, I did. I spoke with my therapist at length the Monday following my post, and she was shocked but extremely helpful in helping me process everything. She spent some time last what should have been the end of our video appointment looking up the statute of limitation laws in my state. There are none for sex crimes. And while she warned me that my report might just be added to a pile of other charges Paul could possibly have against him, given that he was assigned court-mandated AA, all the same, I filed the report with screenshots of his messages to me printed and attached. I'm not sure what to expect from that, and at the end of the day, I hope he has an absolute shit life if it goes nowhere. Now, as for Mark. My therapist was insistent that I at the very least write him something, whether it be a letter to mail him or a message on Facebook. He has never reached out to me after I unblocked him, but given what I thought of him, I think it's understandable. She, like many of you, pointed out that while he knew he was innocent, the thought of someone believing him capable of something monstrous like that could have weighed on him for all this time, and even if his reception of my message wasn't ideal, he deserved at least the closure that this new turn of events could provide. I took a few days writing and rewriting a message in a notepad. I didn't want to accidentally hit send before I had the wording right, and each time I sat down to write it, I felt like I came up short, even though the message just got longer and longer. Again, I didn't just think saying, "Oh, guess what I learned? Paul is an absolute psychopath last week. Surprise!" would have been... Again, I didn't think just saying, "Oh, guess what? I learned Paul is an absolute psychopath last week. Surprise!" would have been super appropriate either, but I wanted to find the right balance. Here's the message that I ended up sending to him. "Hi Mark, so this is a bit out of the blue, and I really don't know how to start this, so I'm just going to put it out there. I'm sorry for not listening to you. Paul messaged me last week and revealed everything, and I'm just sorry. This isn't easy to write, and you deserve so much more than just an apology so long after the fact. There's no excuse for me not giving you the benefit of the doubt other than I let myself be stupidly gaslighted by a psychopathic maniac." A screenshot of his confession to me. This is the message he sent me. It even confesses to an assault on you in the event that you'd like to press charges against him, as I have already filed a police report for what he did to me. If you would like to talk about any of this at all, my inbox is open. If you want to tell me to fuck off, well, I guess I understand that too. I'm not sure what I expect really, because this has ripped open a wound I have been trying to heal, and I'm sure this might cause you some distress, but I felt you at the very least deserved to know." I know I probably could have said more, but anytime I kept trying to write, I felt like it was just me making excuses. I sent that to him this past Friday, and I'm pretty sure he read it sometime between Friday and Saturday, as the red notification had been there when I checked Facebook again at lunch on Saturday. I had been out with my friend Jenny, who had stayed over with me after I learned the truth, and when I told her I had messaged Mark, she wondered if he had responded, so I checked. Last night at about 6 p.m. my phone dinged, and while I thought it might have been a text from Jenny or maybe my mom, I don't really text or talk to a lot of people, I actually found that Mark had sent me a reply. I wish you would have listened to me back then, but I'm glad you know the truth. I thought that all he was going to send me when the three dots kept going across the bottom of my screen. I thought that was all he was going to send me when the three dots kept going across the bottom of my screen. He was still typing when he sent me pictures as well. They were graphic, and Paul's assertion that he had beat the shit out of Mark did in fact also come with documented proof from him in the form of pictures. Mark went on to explain that he filed an assault report the next day after my birthday, but that the police had warned him against accusing Paul of sexually assaulting me given the turn of events and my "don't speak to me again" text I sent him when he tried to explain himself. Nothing had ever come of his police report, and he wasn't even sure why. Neither am I, but he intended to follow up more today. Mark is still very much the kind person I remember him being, and while I was bracing for him to hold a grudge against me, he instead just expressed his happiness that I finally knew the truth. We exchanged small talk through chat for a little while, but it was nowhere near the conversations we used to have. Mark is actually engaged to a girl he has been dating for about 2 years now. He had apparently never brought any of this up to her until she saw my name flash in his screen with the notification and asked who I was. While some of you expressed concern that my friends had smeared his name, he apparently never heard anything about it. He actually still works for the same company we have both been at, just now in a copywriting role for the marketing team, so at the very least, the lack of a police report for me or making a scene at work worked out in his favor there. I asked if we could keep in touch, even if only with small talk, and he said that he thought that would be okay, though he was a lot busier than he was back then between work and planning his wedding. Well, I thought that was going to be the end of it. He messaged me a few hours ago to let me know he refiled his police report and added the messages I sent him, and that if he'd be open to it, he'd like to meet for coffee with his fiancée in tow and a friend of mine if I felt more comfortable doing it that way. Not really sure if that's an extremely good idea, but I shot Jenny a text to see what she thinks and if she'd be open to coming with. She said it's ultimately up to me what I decide to do, and she'd be with me either way. So yeah, that's the update for those of you who have reached out and asked. TLDR, told Mark about Paul's confession. He was happy to be finally absolved in my eyes and didn't seem to hold a grudge against me. We might get coffee this weekend, supervised by his fiancée and my friend. This was a very much needed update. To be honest, I believe that there's now a little bit of light in the tunnel regarding the relationship of OP and Mark. I'm very happy that she decided to send out that message, and I'm even happier that Mark, without skipping a beat, is just happy that he was able to get back in touch with OP, and that OP knows the truth about what happened between him and Paul, excuse me. I hope the police report goes well. I hope that Paul is put under the bus, under the bars, sent straight to jail, because this is scumbag activity that I do not approve of. And honestly, I'm kind of eager to just read the next update, which is apparently the final update. So I'm just gonna skip on ahead to it. I'll tell my opinion on that after. But this new update, this final update, was actually posted in September 19th, 2023. So a lot of time has passed between our last update and this final one. And the update goes: I haven't opened this throwaway account in close to a year and a half, and honestly never expected to come back to it after I aired out learning about the gaslighting monster that attacked me over half a decade ago. For anyone who wants more details, my profile has the post logged, and I'm really not trying to reshare and rehash it, as I have gotten more than enough of that out of my therapy appointments. The reason I'm posting is primarily out of joy. My attacker, Paul, had a slew of other court dates already, and when I filed my case against him, and I started to lose hope that anything was going to happen since I was reporting an incident from over 5 years ago. But the court system in my state was stupidly overbooked, and I just had to wait for things to take their natural course. Over the last few months, I started to get follow-up calls from an investigator that was apparently going over the details of Paul's case. He was already facing some time in prison over a different assault charge. His time in AA had proven not to be effective, even with trying to make amends. And the prosecutor was looking to add my report of sexual assault to an overall criminal case against him. It would require me to submit either a document to be provided as testimony or to act as an in-person witness. Though I had received Paul's message, I hadn't interacted or seen him in person for well over 4 years, and my therapist suggested I might get some closure over testifying against him in court. This finally happened last week. It was hard, and I won't lie, I cried while I was on the stand, but it felt good. The years hadn't been kind to Paul, and while he certainly looked remorseful sitting in the courtroom, I could give 2 fucks about how this was going to affect him. I left after that and found out just this morning that between his various cases, he's going to prison. I'm not sure how long, but I also know he is being added to the sex offender database, which is another win as far as I'm concerned. Other than that, life has been going pretty well. I've decided to throw myself into some new hobbies, another suggestion by my therapist, and I've overall tried to just become the best version of myself as possible. My old friend Mark, who had taken the blame for Paul's actions for so long, got married in the middle of last year, and while he and his fiancée had offered me an invitation, I didn't feel like it was my place to attend. We hadn't been in contact for so long, and I didn't want to have anyone asking me questions on why I was there when I didn't really have any other friends attending the event. We message every so often, but he's got his own life, and it's not my place to intrude on that. I'm just happy that Paul's bullshit never got to derail his life in any huge way outside of the obvious. I'll probably never have reason to log back onto this account again, and it really only did it today because I was just so overjoyed in hearing the results that it reminded me that I had vented to you all so long ago now. To everyone who has reached out to check in on me, thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. And that is the end of this story. I'm very happy for OP, I'm very happy for Mark, and I'm glad that Paul is finally in prison where he deserves to be. OP went through a very traumatic experience and didn't deserve any of the stress, the pain, or the trauma that came with it. Mark was just trying to be a good man, he was just trying to be a good person for his friend, and ended up getting raked over the coals for longer than he needed to be. Paul deserves everything that is headed his way, and I'm genuinely happy that this ended the way that it did, because OP was given closure that she needed from both people. The closure on being able to tell the world what a scumbag that Paul was, and the closure and reconciliation of being able to say that her and Mark are somewhat still friends again. Thank you to everyone who has stayed this long. Thank you to everyone who has read this. Thank you to everyone who has stayed this long in the story with me. I know this story is not the usual story that I read, and this one is actually pretty traumatic for those who have had an experience with this before. But I want to thank you for staying with me on this journey, and I hope that this happy ending gives you a little bit of light in your journey. If you guys could all do me a favor and like, comment, share, and subscribe to this video, it helps with the algorithm, it helps get my channel more attention, and it helps me get closer to my goal of admittedly trying to get 4,000 watch hours on this channel based on my videos. I am admitting that I am trying to go towards monetization on this channel, as I would love to be able to do this as, if not a part-time second job, but hopefully a full-time. I would love the opportunity to be able to do this as a full-time job, reading out these stories to you guys and giving you an opportunity to hear from me, and I get a chance to hear from you guys on your feedback and your positive words and your criticisms. It gives me the opportunity to be a better content creator, and reading these stories kind of helps guide me along the path of being a better person as well. And I'm glad that you guys are all here with me on this journey. Please stay safe. Please be careful out there. I know I kind of partly said my phrase, but as always, stay safe and have a great day. I'll see you guys on the next one.